Once upon a time, Kimberly was just going through the motions. Every once in a while, she'd find some happiness, but it quickly faded. She chased every possible way to make money because she thought money was the key to getting the happiness she longed for. Then, one day, she decided she was worthy enough to try a different path. It led her through the dark cave of fear, past the forest of doubts, and to the village of vulnerability. With each step, she trusted herself more. She asked for what she really wanted, and she started to get it. More happiness, more love, and yes, more money. Welcome to the next chapter of Kimberly's manifesting success story. Hello, and welcome to this episode. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and we are continuing with Kimberly, the chapter about more and more in her manifesting success story. We are recording this July 11th, 2022. You heard the first part of this interview last week. If you didn't, make sure to go catch up. Kimberly, what else is awesome in your life?
I just celebrated my 22-year wedding anniversary. And if you were with me at the beginning of my journey, my husband actually had moved out. And my marriage and relationship is the best it's ever been.
That's amazing. What is the key? If you had to tell someone what's one key to that, how would you wrap that up into like one key or one sentence?
Tell the story that you want to be true, and then ask for what you want. You can't get what you want if you don't ask for it.
Yeah. And so it's all about us, right? It's not about expecting someone else to change. It's us changing and growing.
Yes.
Love it. Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to talk about resistance because I want to deep dive into this story that you have about resistance. So tell us first, did you think resistance was one thing before and now you know it's something else? Did you know what it was? Tell us kind of just a little introduction to resistance for you.
I think resistance for me was, or what it used to be is, I would kind of say rebelling.
Yeah.
I would rebel against what I thought I didn't want.
Yeah.
And what I thought was not the answer to getting what I wanted.
Say more.
So I thought that if there was something that I wanted and the choice in front of me wasn't the choice I wanted, I would just go create a new choice for myself instead of just doing the thing that needed to get done.
Yes. Yeah. And this most recently had to do with getting a job, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to give some context to this because there was a space, and I knew there was a space from sort of when money was coming in. You started coaching about 6 months ago, and I said, it's going to be at least 6 months to a year before there's the study. And I even said, like 6 months before money starts coming in, and more like a year or year and a half when you're at like this first income intention that we have, right? This isn't an overnight because we do it the slow, quick way here instead of the quick, slow way. And so I just set those expectations up. And so even with that, I want to jump in. I wanted to give that background.
Thanks. Because I remember you're like, I didn't tell you didn't have to get a job. I'm like, I know you didn't.
Right. I was like, I never said this, right? And
yeah, I said it.
So tell us about getting a job and the resistance or the rebellion to this?
I was like, no, I'm going to be different. My clients are going to sign up and I'm going to do it faster. Um,
Yes.
and so, yeah, that wasn't happening. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have clients, but as far as what my slow, quick intention is, that didn't happen overnight. Like, I'm like, oh, but I'm a great manifestor now. Why do I have to go get a job? I can just intend that money starts flowing in, and it does. But that wasn't what I had, I guess, intended. I mean, I was like, I don't want to say bullshitting myself because I am a great manifester,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like, I don't want to go do this thing. So I'm like, I kept saying I'm not inspired,
Right.
but I was using that as my justification.
Yes.
If it's not inspired, I don't have to do it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pause right there because this is the thing a lot of people do with the law of attraction. They take what they hear, sort of the premise, the rules, the how to, whatever it is, of how LOA works. And then when they don't want to do something, they apply something from LOA to justify not doing it.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And this was only on a recent call. You said, oh, I'm not inspired to have a job anymore. And I said, you're not inspired. There's like, that's not inspiration. I'm not is not inspiration. That's never inspiration, right? Inspiration is forward. It's an energy that moves us. It's an energy that takes us. It's a whisper. It's never a not, right? Inspiration never comes in that form.
And I know this, but right? I still want, and I've done it twice now. But it's totally, that's not how inspiration works. But right. That's how I was justifying it in my brain because there were certain things I didn't want to do.
Yes. So if I didn't want it, I'll just say it's not inspired. And then by LOA rules, I won't do it. I don't have to do it because it's not inspired.
Yes.
And so for listeners, I really want you to take, because this is something that's hard to understand. Inspiration, it takes a while to learn. And one of the main things is because I followed inspiration that I definitely didn't want to. For example, recently, for whatever reason, like when I left the Four Seasons has been cut, I had no plan, but inspiration was end the lease. You're going somewhere. There was no inspiration coming about where, right? It was like, okay, we'll just sit tight and trust until like the moment. And it all worked out and it was beautiful. But inspiration isn't always what we want to do, first and foremost. But second of all, it's definitely not. We don't get to use inspiration to not do something that we don't want to do.
I was using it as inspiration as kind of like a get out of jail card.
Yes. Oh, it's not inspired.
Yeah.
It's not inspired, which is, it happened that if listeners listen, like, have I said this before? It's not inspired. It's not inspired, because I'll hear this all the time in passing. If we're in a coaching call, I'll call it right from someone and we'll have a discussion about that. But I hear it from people outside or people that think they're using the law of attraction. Like, oh, it just wasn't inspired. If it wasn't like, you don't even talk about it. Right.
Yeah, that's a justification. When you hear it now, that if I were to say that, I would know I was justifying getting out of jail free. Like, I don't want to do this. So that's my way of getting out of doing it.
Yeah. So let's go, right? So we go through all the things, because I think this is a typical law of attraction thing. And like you've said, we'll get to like coaching and why that's important. But, it's the answer was in front of you. So you needed a certain amount of money because you had done your budget. So you actually knew how much money you needed, right?
Yeah.
And, I say, this is what the coaching timeline looks like. This is it's just the time it takes. And you decide, oh no, I'm going to be different. I'm going to manifest it faster. Right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that happens, and I don't know if you're aware, but once we say, oh, I'm going to manifest it, like then our resistance turns way up. because we're not about to give in to, oh, the job is an option because why does the resistance get even higher once you decide like, oh, I'm going to manifest my way out of this, or I'm going to manifest something different than what is the current reality?
Ask me the question again.
Why, once you decided that you were going to manifest, like you were going to be different, you're going to do it different, you're going to manifest faster, did that turn up the resistance on getting the job?
Because it didn't leave space for any other choice or option to come to me. I closed the doors. I mean, I didn't just close them, I slammed it shut.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, in the process, closed the door on the flow of money coming to me.
Say more. Mm-hmm, you did.
I had no source coming in. Like money was always flowing.
Mm-hmm.
Once I made that decision to not get it and my resistance went up even more, it's like, I don't want to say all avenues stopped because my husband still brings in money. But for me, I blocked any opportunities there were no opportunities. Money was not flowing. Mm-hmm. I wasn't finding pennies or dimes or money in the parking lot or all the things that I call normal now. Mm-hmm. Like I just expect to find a change in the parking lot. That wasn't happening.
Right.
I didn't recognize it in the moment, but I did. I slammed the door on money finding me, flowing to me, and opportunities even to come in because I had already made the choice and left no room or space for anything to come to me. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have seen it. I had blinders on.
Yeah. Because you shut the door, like by saying, no, this is not an option. Very often we shut the door on all options. Right?
Yeah. That was a huge lesson.
Yeah. It's a really big lesson. And I said something that I want to clarify and would love your input in. I said, you can't change the current reality. Like we can't change our current reality. We can change our future reality.
Yes.
And so when you have a budget and there is a number that you need, right? Mm-hmm. We have two choices. We can say, okay, am I good just kind of hanging out and letting the universe bring this to me? But it's setting the intention. And once we set the intention, if the universe shows up for a job, there's so much often judgment that wasn't manifested. Yeah. Right? Because it's not the way you wanted it. It doesn't fall in line with somehow, instead of seeing that as you being a good manifester, you're judging it as being a bad manifester because it wasn't clients.
Yes. And I actually have a perfect example of what happened.
Yeah.
So I actually begrudgingly accepted a job that paid, it depended on what shift you worked. I'm going to say $18 an hour. Mm-hmm. And it felt so soul crushing. And then the day before, I was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this job. There has to be something different. Well, then the day before I was supposed to start.
Hold on. I want to, before you tell the story, yes. What happened and where you got to that soul crushing place is because you resisted until it was a panic, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like you didn't take advantage.
I'm sorry, I didn't share that. Yeah.
No, that's okay. Just for listeners, I want to make sure, like if we're creating something different and we know we need to take those little steps, like not pushing away a job until we're desperate, because then what you get is soul crushing or desperate or all the things. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So my son had come home and said that the gym he goes to was hiring. And so I called and I interviewed that day and they offered me the position. And that job pays $12 an hour. But it was, they let me work the hours that I want to work. They let me clock out to do my coaching calls. And when I need time off, I just tell them I need it off and there's no questions. I show up, I do my job, and I have the flexibility that I need. Now, I think in the past, I would have thought, well, I turned down an $18 an hour job to work a $12 an hour job. But I have so much more freedom with the $12 an hour job. Yes. I get a free membership and tanning and all the things. But yeah, it's so much better And it felt better accepting that
Mm-hmm. Well, and what does that freedom? So that's one key, right? Is not
job.
judging by the numbers,
Right.
right? Which is what a lot of what got you into this situation. And it all worked out. Once we let go, that's the thing. We can always choose again, right? We
Yes.
can realize what we're doing and we can choose again. And so, that $6 an hour, there's no comparison to the freedom, right? Because what does
Right.
the freedom allow you to create?
It allows me to create time to call in my future clients
Mm-hmm.
and continue writing. Like I'm writing blogs now and doing all the things that I do as a coach.
Yes.
And I'm also finding time to be creative.
Yeah. And speaking of clients, like when you were in this most resistant space, what happened with your clients that you do have?
They didn't stay.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And there was not a lot of people like showing up engaged in the work, right?
Right.
And I think there's this misconception. I don't know if you had this, but I know that other people out there definitely have had this. It's like, oh, if I have a job, my clients will leave because I'm somehow not being who I say I am. Right.
Yeah.
But really, it's the energy it's the not honoring yourself and getting the job and having the money and creating the life of ease that is what pushes your clients away.
Yes. And I did not recognize, but that's exactly what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized it after the fact, obviously, but in that moment, well, the other thing too is I wasn't showing up and doing my own assignments.
Right.
How could I expect my own clients to show up and do their assignments when I wasn't?
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely was working from a different energy space.
Yes.
And it's definitely changed doing all of this and letting go of the resistance and then getting the job and all the things. The flow is so much better now. It's like I kind of had a clog in my drain.
Mm-hmm.
And then I unclogged it and everything started flowing again. And it didn't take as long because I've been doing this for so long.
Yes, absolutely. It doesn't take as long because it's just unclogging it, right? You're not building the whole drain system anymore. You're just like getting the clog out. It's not starting from the ground up. And
Exactly.
I think that is so important. And it's important to understand that about our clients because again, I think some of this comes from the coaching industry and I don't know, other marketing that says like, oh, you have to do this. And I'm in a huge favor, which is why I had said everything to you, but get a job if you need it, right? Because I didn't know your total finances, but I said something to the effect of have a conversation with your husband and see, because this is going to be the amount of time before you can expect that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
I just took pieces of that. I think I am human. So I think sometimes I do just take the things I want out of a conversation.
Yes. Yes.
I've gotten way better with that. But I think, I definitely took the pieces and parts that, oh, I like this part. That feels good. This over here, not so much. So we'll just leave that over here.
Yeah.
And then it snowballed into huge resistance.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that there's money flowing and you're not just like, I have to be a better manifester to get the money, right? Because that's the energy it was.
Yeah.
I got to be a better manifester. I'm going to stop doing my assignments. I'm going to stop doing everything, but I'm going to manifest, right?
Yes.
How
insane is that, Cassie?
I know, right? And you didn't even notice, right?
Right.
That like you're continually having this thought about, I'm going to be different. I'm going to manifest. I'm a good manifester, but you're not even doing your assignments, right? How different is the energy when money's flowing? Like there's money there now, right? There's not a thought of, because there's just a certain amount of things that you cover and it's agreement, right? And your husband's giving you lots of space, but there's a certain amount of things that you cover. And how much easier is life now?
So much easier. As a matter of fact, my monthly things that I cover, it's going down. And actually, my fun and celebration column has gone way up.
Yay!
So
For the money you're bringing in, amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and when you're in Manifest Magic Money right now, which is one of our money programs that you take when you get there. And you are manifesting like sort of this bridge money, right? And so you go ahead.
I had a story about that number, actually.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear it.
So I was thinking, but this is like not very much money. Like I'm thinking that in my head, like, how is this going to change my life? It was an inspired number, and I'm like, okay, but I'm like, I don't see it. I was also still in the resistance stage, but it also, that number, I recognized that I don't need a lot to have the life that I want.
Yes. And we're going to talk more about that. This is going to continue into a third episode in this series because I want to talk about that separate. But yeah, so you knew, I want to come back and just finish the story. You knew how much money you needed, which meant when you did get the job, you could calculate out at what point you could save enough to have that money, right?
Yeah. I learned so many things doing the whole resistance thing. And yeah, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah. I do want to mention this part, because you said, I sometimes think I should know these things, and often I'm surprised when I do them again. One of the biggest reasons I know that I grow, change, shift, or that as I grow, change, shift, I will always want to coach. So we just wrap up by explaining that statement.
Yeah. So, I think my brain thought, you've been doing this for 2.5 years. You should have your shit together. You know what to do.
Yeah.
And yet I created that huge snowball of resistance. And for me, I want someone to have my back and to catch me when I'll put in air quotes when I'm screwing up, and call me out on my bullshit stories, because I want to grow and expand and I want more money. I want more adventures and experiences and all those things. And having a coach does that for me. Because we don't always, I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me, we don't always see like what's right in front of our face.
Absolutely.
And having a coach, it's like this huge safety net.
Yeah.
I know that Cassie has my back and she'll catch me. And it's really funny because I talked about that book in the blog post I wrote, but I'm not afraid to jump now because I have a net with a coach.
Yes. I love it. And I think that's the perfect place to wrap up for this week. We're going to continue this chapter of more and more of Kimberly's manifesting success story next week. So make sure to come back and check it out. The telling of stories is so powerful, both to the person telling it and the person receiving it. Since 30,000 BC, we as humans have told stories to teach and guide. And now we, with Manifesting Success Stories, hope to inspire you to what is possible in your own life. If you want more manifesting success, go to moremanifestingsuccess.com, where you'll find links to anything we've talked about on the show. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, you have the power to write your own happy ever after.